Welcome back, folks. Welcome to the F-Bomb Show. Today, Tara and I have a special guest with us today. We have Maja here, Dr. Maja, we like to call her. And Maja and I have gone back, oh my God, Maja, 14 years. I feel like it's been 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
hmm
2025, 14 years. So Maja and I attended the same institution together to do our PhDs. I was just saying to her, I was super envious of her as soon as I met her because she had incredible hair. She had just had an incredible presence. And you know, Maja, ever since that day I met you, I have always come to be super, I don't know what the word is, you're just admirable in terms of your stature, your posture, your presence. You were like the thing to be emulating. Anyways, so we're really happy to have you on the show today with us because I think you have an incredible message for women who want to be leaders or who are in leadership positions. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
So I really want to start by, first kind of let's talk about your book. You have an incredible book, and when was it published, Maja?
It was published a long time ago. So it is outdated, and the new book is going to be so much better because it's based on the study. But yeah, I did have a book, Hey Lady Stop Apologizing. And it kind of went off my TEDx talk, Hey Lady Stop Apologizing, and my general obsession with why do women apologize more than men?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to the book initially when it came out. I'm so excited to hear there's going to be a new one. I'm
Yeah.
like so excited. And I know with this book you had a workbook that you published as well, correct? Tell us a little bit about why you decided to do a workbook with the book that you had published.
Sure. So it is about creating micro actions. So if you want to grow your confidence, you can't just read about it, right? If you want to be a better painter, you can't just read about the lives of artists. You have to actually sit down and paint. Same if you want to be a writer, you can't just wish for it. You have to sit down, and it has to just be you and your typewriter or your computer or your pen and pad, and sitting there in that aloneness every single day. Instead of just waiting for inspiration, it's sitting down and doing the work. So the workbook was a way to push women out of their comfort zone and say, hey, okay, it's great that you read all this information, but let's not be a library. Let's not just collect the information. Instead, let's put that into action. So it was about getting them to answer some of the questions, working through hopefully some aha moments. And certainly one of my biggest aha moments from my own study is that confidence is a muscle that strengthens with use. It is absolutely a muscle that strengthens with use, but most people think it's a feeling. And so they wait for that feeling of preparedness and knowledge and confidence before they take the action. When it's the reverse, it is in the doing that creates the feeling. So you take all these micro actions, and way down the road, feelings of confidence arise.
Yeah, and that's so true, actually. Tara, I was thinking about the whole message of her book, like, before we kind of came on, and then to hear you say confidence is a muscle makes like that's an aha moment for me.
I've never heard of it explained that way before, because it is, most people think it is a feeling. It's a feeling of confidence, right? That's how most people explain it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a feeling. It is not a feeling, sorry. And it is also a skill that can be built and that can be strengthened like any other skill. Learning a language, public speaking, any of that. Right now, I'm currently learning how to do a full push-up. I'm trying to work my way up, not on the knees, but like a full push-up and a pull-up. That's my current thing. So it's taking those micro actions every single day and putting them into place. But I'll tell you, the impetus for me writing the book was simply, could I do it? Not would it be phenomenal? Not would it be perfect, but could I friggin' do it? And I did it. And then I thought, okay, well, here's a workbook. Sort of immediately thereafter, I recognized, oh, the book is okay, but it's not phenomenal. And just being able to be okay with that knowledge was so freeing, because it is not my life's work. It is a stepping stone to the next great thing that I will do.
Yeah. And it's true, I think about our training as academics, Maja, and it's almost ingrained in us, right? That everything we put out has to be super perfect, super beautiful. And we have to be super motivated to kind of be ambitious in everything we do. And it's not about, even when it's not perfect, it's not mediocre that it's not perfect, right? But it's that stepping stone. Like you said in your book, we create, we develop, we're constantly doing that as leaders, right? As potentials. And I think it's really important to recognize that. And I think that goes back to what you're saying, right? Confidence is a skill. It's a muscle. You need to actively work on it every time.
Yeah. And you can be confident in one area of your life and have your confidence rocked in another. But then there's also the flip side is that as your confidence grows in one area of your life, it does tend to domino if there are systems in place. So for instance, 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, I started my own study, and I speak to women all over the world about what influences their confidence. So I've spoken to 420 women across 26 countries, like 2,200 hours of interview data. I'm swimming in data, and I still have another year of speaking to participants. And it is fascinating to look at all the different avenues in which our confidence gets chipped away at, that we will simultaneously then say to ourselves, that's probably not the right industry for me. I'm probably not good enough. I'm not made for this. And so that has been such a interesting aspect for me to discover in these in-depth chats with women, what hurts their confidence, what strengthens their confidence, and then how do they differ, by early childhood experiences, toxic workplaces, bad bosses, bad relationships, trauma, and all of that, because all of those are micro influences on our confidence.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So, would you say that while you were explaining that, when you had mentioned, maybe this isn't the right avenue for me, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, would you say that has like a bit of a sideline to what we've been hearing a lot of lately as imposter syndrome?
So there's two schools of thought on imposter syndrome. There's one school of thought that says absolutely it is a thing and it exists and it impacts both men and women, but impacts women more because they tend to internalize their mistakes. So they make a mistake and they think, I am the mistake. I failed, therefore I am a failure. And evidence of their shortcomings is evidence to them that they do not belong. And at its core, they are not good enough. So that's one school of thought. Then there's another school of thought that says, this thing doesn't exist. This is a pseudo-medicalized term that was created by the system of isms, right? By the system of ageism, sexism, fat phobia, queer phobia, sexism, racism, all of that. And so we often, as women, find ourselves in spaces that were never designed for us. And if you are the only one with an accent, the only one with a hijab, the only one that's new in the job, the only person who is Black or Indigenous or Asian, whatever it is, the only person who's neurodivergent, and you look around and you don't see yourself represented, you start doubting yourself. So it's not you, it's the system that is continuously making you feel less than. So I ask this question to my participants and I say to them, what do you think about this imposter syndrome thing? Does it exist? Is it an internal thing or is it the system? And the most common response is, oh, I hadn't thought about the system. Oh, how interesting. And that's the system working. If you never thought about the system as potentially hurting your confidence, I mean, look how well the machine is working.
It's true, because we had this discussion too, right, Tara? We had a discussion on imposter syndrome. One of the things we really brought up actually in the second episode where we discussed it was the system that's built around women as leaders and how it's flawed, or it was never meant to be designed for women to excel. Right. And so there's just so much more to discover and unpack in that than to really medicalize it or make it something that is internal to women. Right.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I interviewed this scientist from Mexico and we ended up chatting, I think 6 or 7 times, right? So these interviews that I do with women are very intensive. They're 1 hour long, but they take several chats to complete. So my shortest interview is 4 hours and my longest is 14. But on average, there's 6 to 7 hours that take place over a series of weeks. So I really get to know these participants. So anyways, I do this interview with this scientist from Mexico. She loves it. And she says, would you mind if I post your study brochure on my Facebook group for Hispanic and Latin scientists? And I said, absolutely. All of a sudden, I'm inundated with participants who want to study, who want to be part of the study, and they're all over the world. Right. They're all sort of Latin, Hispanic. And I start talking to them, and what comes up is accent and language as something that chips away at their confidence. Again, me as a white woman with no accent, even though I'm a first generation Canadian, everyone in my family has a heavy accent. I never even thought about accents as something as a confidence killer. And every single one of them is telling me how when they speak to a white dominated audience. And those participants are kind of making facial expressions and looking at them like, what word did she just say? What is she? And they start overthinking and think, oh my goodness, did I use that word correctly? Is my grammar wrong? They're missing some of the cultural jokes or nuances in conversation. And so it wasn't until I spoke to them that I recognized that accents were a confidence killer, which anyways, it's a long-winded way of saying we can have our confidence chipped away by the system, and we can also have our confidence chipped away by other women. And we can do it not even recognizing. So as she was saying that to me, I thought, oh, how often have I sort of made a facial expression trying to figure out what somebody with an accent said? How have I added to another woman's? Or how has another woman's confidence been chipped away at work and I did nothing as a bystander?
Right.
And that lack of allyship, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to talk to as wide a group of women as possible.
Again, another point for self-reflection as leaders too. And I think, that kind of leads me to, one of the questions we had for you, Maja, is like, what advice would you have for women who are wanting to become leaders or who are leaders? I know you have all these great tidbits and I love them because, there's so much there for us to kind of chew on, but what advice would you have, or what kinds of recommendations would you make? Anything?
It's such a difficult question, Christina,
I know.
because there's that answer could go on for 20 minutes. So I guess my biggest advice would be to recognize that failure is simply information. We don't have to internalize every mistake that we make, but oftentimes what we do, and this is one of the questions in the study, I ask my participants, when the good happens in your life, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And the most common response is, I move on. That was my job. That's literally what I got hired to do. They had a goal, they checked it off their list, and they're moving on. And it's like, oh, okay, so we don't even take a moment to internalize our progress or appreciate our success. And then the second question is, well, when things don't work out well, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And the most common response is self-blame.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? We use harsh tone. We judge ourselves. We compare ourselves. And so it becomes a double whammy where we internalize the bad, and then we stay in that zone for way longer. And then when the good happens, we externalize it. I was just lucky. I was the only one that applied for this award. Nobody else applied for the job. That's why I got this promotion. I just had a lucky day, right? It's all of those little minimizing things that we do. And I had a fantastic chat with a physician, and she was an ER physician. And she said to me, I don't know what I'm doing in medicine anymore. I feel like shit. Every day is shit. Every day people are upset at me, and I'm apologizing for the state of the healthcare and how long they're waiting in the ER and how long it's going to take to get an x-ray or an ultrasound. And then I apologize for their diagnosis, and I apologize to the specialist for running the wrong tests. And she started to question, am I cut out for medicine? And she had hit rock bottom. And then she decided that from the moment she left the hospital until she got home, she was going to itemize out loud on the car ride home everything that went well that day that she was a part of. And that essentially is called Spot the Success. And it comes out of psychological research. And it's about noticing and recognizing the good that you are doing. Did you complete the project? Was the project 100%? But what were you a part of that went well that day? And so for her, that sounded like, okay, the nurse that normally hates me smiled at me, asked me how my weekend was. Today, nobody assumed I was the nurse. Everybody assumed I was the doctor when I went in. I had a lovely chat with the x-ray technician. I caught a medication error. And so she was able to do that on her shift home. But then with practice, she was able to do that in real time during her shift. That's something I try to do myself every single day. Whether it's because parenting or anything.
And it's funny because you say that that's a physician, right? And you think as a woman looking at another woman who's in a physician role, you think, man, they are super smart. They have worked hard and they're in an ER that's a difficult environment, and for her to take that back and feel deflated, right? After every shift. And then just to flip that around, right? To make what you call the spot the success, right? Which is like a strategy.
Yeah.
It gives you that perspective that nobody is immune to feeling this way.
Nobody. I have spoken to anesthesiologists and scientists and people who are published authors. And I mean, it runs the gamut. I've spoken to so many different women across industries, across cultures. It is an almost universal experience. I had one participant, she actually was a psychologist, and she employed a good for me strategy. So whenever she did something, she would say, good for me. Look at that. Good for me. And it wasn't, did she complete the task? Was the task 100% of what she wanted? No. If she started it. So for instance, she and I spoke over Zoom and she was folding the laundry. And she said, good for me. I folded half the laundry. But the previous her would have said, look, I can't even friggin' fold the laundry all day. I've been home on my day off and right? But instead she looked at what did she do? Not what did she not do, but what did she do? And I love that. Good for me.
Yeah. I love that. And you talk about that too, Maja, in the first book you published too. You talk a lot about how as women we deflect, those successes, and you mentioned that earlier. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you wrote, the book Stop Apologizing?
Sure. It was after I graduated with my PhD in sociology and I had attended a conference. And I didn't think anything of the conference. I was sitting down. There was about 500 of us in the audience, and I was listening to a panel discussion of 4 women. And all they really had to do was introduce themselves. And they were each individual experts in their chosen field. And one after the other, they began this dance of minimization. And the first woman said, oh my goodness, I can't believe you asked me to speak on such a distinguished panel. I don't know what I could add. And I was like, what? What do you mean you don't know what you could add? You've literally written 7 books. You're the world's expert. And then I thought, okay, calm down, Maja. She's probably nervous. And then the second woman, same thing. She was like, oh my goodness, I thought they sent the panel invitation to the wrong person. And I was like, no, make it stop. And it was all 4 women. They all did the same thing. And that was a 5-day conference. And I attended about 25 of those panel discussions. And I listened to a lot of male speakers. And not once did a guy take the microphone and speak in a way that questioned whether he was expert enough to give his opinion, that spoke in a way that minimized his accomplishments or downplayed his success. No, none of that. And yet everywhere I went at this conference, a woman was speaking in that way, but also using an apologetic tone. So I became enraged and I became disheartened because what I saw with women at the pinnacle of their career mirrored exactly what I saw with my young undergrads, because I taught undergrads for, 8 or 9 years. And then I became obsessed with learning everything I could about apologies and confidence. But then I procrastinated for about 2 years on this because I would start to give talks because I wanted to see, did other women resonate with what I witnessed in that conference? Like, was I onto something? Was this an idea that I could take to the market? Would people resonate with it? And after every talk I gave, there'd be this long lineup of women waiting to speak to me. And I found it unusual. I was like, women are so busy. Like they're all parents and caregivers and they're working 2 jobs and they're, doing all these things, but yet they were waiting to speak to me and they would all say the same thing. I saw myself in your examples. It resonated. And then they would say, have you considered apologies and trauma? Have you considered apologies and cultural differences? And I hadn't. And the only way to figure that out was to do my own study. So then that's what influenced me to start the study.
And it was a profound beginning for you, but also for myself when I read the book, because like you said, it resonated with me and it resonated with a lot of other women I talked to, because that's automatically what we go to as women is the apology. And I remember watching your TED Talk after, and I laughed because you gave the example of the man who came in late to the meeting at the restaurant. He said, thanks for waiting, instead of apologizing. And I went, oh my God, like I would have never thought to have said that.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll never forget that. And when he said that, I turned to him and I said, I know what you just did and I love it. And I'm friggin' stealing it. And I'm telling every woman I know because this is ridiculous. And actually a few years ago, I had a former student reach out to me and she wanted to give me the story of how she was in HR now. And she said, I was late for the meeting and I had your voice in my head. And as she was walking up to the table, she's telling herself, don't you fucking apologize. Don't you apologize. Don't say sorry. And so she's meeting with 3 or 4 men and she gets to the table and she looks them in the eye. And she says, hello, gentlemen. So glad to be here. I can't wait to get started. And she just sat down and they all said, yeah, great. And they started the meeting. And so she left me a voice note and she was like, fuck. And she felt thrilled. She felt empowered
That's
that
awesome.
she didn't put herself in sort of an inferior or subservient position by walking into that meeting already starting with an apology.
Yeah.
That's great. Great. So on that note, then, how would you suggest that, other women in leadership could grow their self-confidence? And how do we kind of cascade that down to like the next generation?
So the first thing is we need to destigmatize our relationship with failure. I talk about my failure journey often. I don't minimize it. It is a huge part of where I am now. And any success that I've had in my life has been on the back end of a series of failures. And I will fail again and again and again. But I have learned not to internalize that. So I think by developing a growth mindset with our young mentees is so important. So recognizing failure is information and really having that appetite for learning and knowledge and recognizing that perfectionism should not be a badge of honor. Really, when somebody says, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, my immediate thing is, my God, like, are you getting help? Like, I feel so bad for you because it's just making us sadder.
It's true.
And sicker.
Yeah.
And the comparison trap is awful. And perfectionism rates are increasing across the age groups. It's awful. So yes, that would be my tip. And then for your first question around
like, how would we, I guess that kind of answers my first question. Like, what tips would you give somebody to grow their own self-confidence?
Okay, so I'll give you an example from one of my participants who really decided that she was going to choose a value-driven life instead of a goal-driven life. And so she sat down and tried to figure, okay, what are my values? I am a risk taker. I am creative. I am outgoing. And she had a list of 5 or 6. And she joined a mountain biking. She was a leader at work and she joined a mountain biking club on the weekends. And it scared the crap out of her. And everybody's jumping off these big mounds in the trails. And she was so scared. And rather than thinking, okay, I want to be able to do 3 jumps in this trail ride, she kept telling herself, I'm a risk taker. I'm a risk taker, right? And she gets to this one jump and she's too scared to pedal. And the rest of the group tells her exactly where to stand, when to stand up, where to position her feet. And they sort of coach her through it. She's so scared of falling and breaking a bone. And she does it. And it was the smallest jump, but she did it. That action fueled the success that she would have later on that week because she just kept replaying that. And so when she found herself nervous before giving a presentation at work, she reminded herself, A, I'm a risk taker. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a risk taker. And B, I just jumped a friggin' hill on the weekend. So I can get through this speech, right?
Yeah.
So it's about, again, spotting the success, reminding yourself of your little wins. So oftentimes we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to start drinking more water. I'm going to work out more. I'm going to stop yelling at my kids. I'm going to have more patience with them. I'm going to read 50 pages a day. And we put all these new habits into place when we know the research on habit formation. We know you cannot institute, 4 or 5 new habits at a time. And so it's picking 1 to 2 new things that you're going to work on. Are you going to figure out your values? Are you going to try to take out sorry, maybe put in thank you, or, it's minor actions, micro moments that you're looking for. And then you remind yourself of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. I think honestly, Maja, like, I don't know how much you just gave me, but it's like ding, ding, ding. I have like a million things that have just like set off light bulbs in my head.
And you know what? It's the same for me when I interview my participants. And I come down from every interview and I say to my husband, oh my gosh, that was like the most glorious interview. I learned so much. And right now I'm speaking to women predominantly who have ADHD or on the autism spectrum or chronic illness, chronic pain and whatnot. And every single interview is just one aha moment where I'm like, oh, look at this. Oh, I did not know that. Oh, this is an area I want to work on. This is an area I want to learn more about. And that's really essentially what confidence is. It's simply a muscle that you strengthen with use.
Well, Maja, I think we're going to end on that note because I'm going to go strengthen my muscles a little later, including the confidence. Awesome. Honestly, Maja, I can't wait to hear about the rest of your study that you're coming out with, and to see more of what you're going to produce for us, because everything you have given thus far has resonated. And I think Tara feels the same, right, Tara?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're really happy you could come on. We really appreciate the time you've given us today. And for all our followers, make sure you plug into Maja and her website. Maja, how do they connect with you? What's your website?
Sure, they can reach me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and it's at Professor Maja, and Maja is Maja, or they can go onto my website. It is professormaja.com, and they'll see in July I'm running a whole series of online workshops, and if they want to join, they can.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Maja. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the weekend.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, ladies. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Bye.